Hello, and welcome back to Global Crossroads. I'm your host, Alex, and with me today, we're launching a new segment we call Today's Point. It's where we take one critical global event, peel back its layers, and get to the heart of what it means for all of us. And today's point couldn't be more pressing. The unraveling thread, a U.S. global standing under strain. The U.S. has long been the world's most attractive destination for investment, a beacon of stability and opportunity. But recent events have challenged that narrative. A sudden and forceful crackdown on Korean workers in the U.S., a move that has been widely reported by reputable news outlets like the Washington Post, has sent a ripple of uncertainty across the business world. This isn't just a single incident. It's a symptom of deeper contradictions that could fundamentally reshape global economics and geopolitics. To help us dissect this complex issue, we have a distinguished guest with us today, a leading expert on diplomacy and international relations who has been following these developments closely. Please give a warm welcome to Dr. Henderson.
Thank you, Alex. It's great to be here and to have this crucial conversation. This is an issue that deserves serious attention, as it speaks to the very heart of how nations interact in a globalized world.
Dr. Henderson, let's start with the basics. The initial reports were quite startling. We saw reports from the Washington Post highlighting a new sense of uncertainty for companies investing in the U.S., particularly Korean firms. Can you walk us through the specifics of what happened and why it was so concerning?
Absolutely, Alex. The core of the issue revolves around a recent enforcement action by U.S. immigration authorities. They conducted a series of raids that led to the detention of Korean workers who were on a special visa status or working on-site at major U.S. manufacturing facilities, many of which are under construction by Korean corporations as part of massive, multi-billion-dollar investment projects. The Washington Post, among others, reported that this crackdown has severely rattled the business community. Think about it. These companies, particularly in the tech and battery sectors, have committed hundreds of billions of dollars to build state-of-the-art facilities in the U.S. in response to incentives from the American government. They were seen as crucial partners in rebuilding the U.S. supply chain and countering China's economic influence. Yet, the very people needed to install specialized equipment and train local workers, people essential to the success of these projects, were treated like criminals. The optics of American law enforcement in full gear, handcuffing and shackling allied workers, created a deep sense of betrayal and distrust. It made the entire investment climate feel volatile and unpredictable.
So, it's not just about the legality of their status. It's about the message it sends. A message that says, even after investing heavily and in good faith, you can be blindsided by a sudden policy shift or an aggressive enforcement action.
Precisely. It created a chilling effect. According to reports, some Korean executives are now openly questioning the wisdom of their U.S. investments. They're even suggesting that perhaps it would have been better to just pay the tariffs and continue operations elsewhere rather than face the risk of this kind of backlash. This isn't just a minor complaint. It's a fundamental reevaluation of their entire U.S. strategy.
This is where it gets more complex. We've talked about the what. Now let's get into the why. What is the official U.S. government's explanation for this? And how is that message being received by its own media and experts?
This is where it gets more complex. We've talked about the what. Now, let's get into the why. What is the official U.S. government's explanation for this? And how is that message being received by its own media and experts?
But that framing seems to clash with the reality on the ground. How are U.S. media and legal analysts responding to this?
There's a significant internal debate. Many U.S. media outlets and experts are pointing to a glaring policy contradiction. On one hand, the U.S. government is celebrating massive investments from countries like South Korea, touting them as a success of its economic policy. On the other hand, it's rounding up the very people who are essential for these projects to get off the ground. It's a classic case of what analysts are calling economic hypocrisy. Furthermore, some reports indicate that the crackdown may have been prompted by complaints from local labor groups who allege that these companies were using foreign workers to circumvent the hiring of American workers. So, there is a domestic political dimension to this. A populist push for America First policies that are sometimes at odds with the broader goals of foreign investment. Legal experts have also criticized the aggressive manner of the raids, arguing that the use of shackles and chains was unnecessary and created a hostile atmosphere that could deter future international cooperation. This isn't just about enforcing the law. It's about the manner in which the law is enforced and the mixed signals it sends to the world.
Now, let's zoom out. When something like this happens, it doesn't exist in a vacuum. It's a gift to America's geopolitical rivals. What kind of leverage and opportunities does this give countries like China and Russia?
This incident is, in many ways, a perfect case study for China and Russia to use against the U.S. They see this as a crack in the armor, and they are already using it. For China, this is a prime opportunity to present itself as a more reliable and predictable investment partner. The U.S. has been a vocal critic of China's economic coercion and unpredictability. Now, China can turn that argument around and say, look, the U.S. is the one that's unreliable. They invite you in with incentives only to change the rules and treat your people poorly. Come to us instead. Our policies are clear and consistent. This narrative helps China attract foreign direct investment that might have otherwise gone to the U.S., especially from countries in the global south that are skeptical of U.S. intentions. It allows China to position itself as a stabilizing force in the global economy, directly in contrast to what they portray as U.S. economic nationalism. For Russia, the gains are more about undermining U.S. alliances. Russia has been working tirelessly to sow discord among Western allies. This incident provides them with concrete evidence to claim that the U.S.'s alliance-first rhetoric is empty. They can argue that when push comes to shove, the U.S. prioritizes its domestic political agenda and its own interests over those of its partners. This is a powerful message, particularly to nations that feel caught between the U.S. and China, or those that have already been sanctioned by the West. Russia can point to this incident and say, see, the U.S. cannot be trusted. Its alliances are transactional and fragile. Both countries will use this to promote their own geopolitical models. China will push its model of state-guided, long-term stability, and Russia will continue its campaign to portray the U.S.-led global order as a system in decline.
So, what starts as a domestic enforcement action quickly spirals into a global propaganda victory for America's adversaries.
Exactly. It's a strategic blunder. The U.S. spent years and billions of dollars trying to build new supply chains with its allies, only to have that effort jeopardized by an action that, while technically legal, was diplomatically and economically tone-deaf.
Dr. Henderson, our time is running short, but this discussion has been incredibly insightful. Let's talk about what this means for the future. What are the key takeaways for us? And what should we be mindful of as these events unfold?
I think the most important takeaway is that we need to stop viewing these events in isolation. They are all interconnected. A domestic policy decision, especially in a country with the global influence of the U.S., can have profound, unintended international consequences. This incident highlights the growing tension between globalization and economic nationalism. As nations grapple with domestic pressures, such as concerns over jobs and sovereignty, they risk alienating the very partners they need for long-term prosperity.
It really forces us to think beyond the headlines. We're not just watching a story about a crackdown. We're watching a fundamental shift in how countries interact.
Precisely. The question is no longer just, will countries invest in the U.S., but can they invest in the U.S. with confidence? And that uncertainty is a powerful force that can redirect capital and alliances.
On that powerful note, I want to end with a question for our listeners today. We've talked about this issue from a global perspective, but what does it mean to you? How do you think these events will shape the future of international cooperation? And what should we be doing to ensure that our leaders are making decisions with a truly global vision? That's all the time we have for today's point. Thank you, Dr. Henderson, for your invaluable insights.
My pleasure, Alex. Thank you.
And thank you for joining us. We hope this discussion has given you a new perspective on a critical issue. We'll be back next time with another point to ponder. Until then, stay curious.